As organizations become more connected and AI becomes more embedded in business processes, managing identity securely and seamlessly has never been more important. Today, we'll explore how SAP Cloud Identity Services help organizations simplify identity and access management, strengthen security, and prepare for the next generation of intelligent content and AI-powered experiences. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. We are excited to have you join us. Today, I have the pleasure of having Michael Friedrich and Marco Sommer joining me. And again, we have the honor of having Boris supporting your questions and at the end, moderating the Q&A part. Marco is product manager for the SAP Cloud Identity Services. He has a background as a developer in SAP's industry solutions for healthcare and insurance. Since 2011, he is part of the SAP BTP security team. Marco's focus topic is single sign-on for SAP Cloud Solutions. Michael is head of the product management team for the SAP Cloud Identity Services, SAP Key Management Service, as well as other BAIP security services. Michael joined SAP in 1998 and has held various positions in the security development area. He began as a software developer and then took on management and program responsibilities for various areas within SAP's security development organization. Michael holds a master's degree in computer science with emphasis on cryptography and compiler technology from the University of Karlsruhe in Germany. And now let's dive in. Michael, please take it away.
Thank you. Sharing the slides and then warm welcome as well from my side for the overview session about SAP Cloud Identity Services. Look into an overview covering strategic topics and then look at the roadmap before we hopefully have time to answer your questions. So a glimpse on the agenda. I'll start with a short introduction. What are the SAP Cloud Identity Services before we dig into details about the SAP Business AI platform and specifically Agent Identity. What does it mean? Where are we heading to? Second deep dive topic, then done by Marco, is about SAP-managed scenarios. Where do we involve Cloud Identity to? Then we look at the roadmap of Cloud Identity Services before we close with a summary and your questions. So let me get started. Before we get into Cloud Identity Services, first, what are the key areas for identity access management? So key part is consistently identity lifecycle management. It's important for all customers to know their users, to know their employees, know where they are, in which systems they should be, what authorizations they have, specifically for onboarding and changes, but also even more important for leavers if employees leave the company or if they change positions, to ensure that from a compliance perspective, they are only left with proper authorizations or removed from the system if needed. Which means that, as mentioned already, authorization management is the second important pillar for that one. And then lastly, and the first employees see is obviously you need to have authentication and single sign-on to give customers and employees like a secure and easy way to access the systems so that we know who they are and can enforce authorizations. For SAP systems, the SAP Cloud Identity Services are the component that ensure consistent security and identity management. It starts with like a central user store for SAP Cloud applications, which is used by Joule, Workzone, and other central solutions. For those, we need to have an overview about the users, where they are, what they can do, and we might kind of see that later on if you look in the agentic world. SAP Cloud Identity Service ensures a consistent protocol support, both SAML and OIDC and FIDO for the authentication part, as well as SCIM for provisioning. It ensures the consistency across all SAP applications that are connected, as well ensures like a consistent set of security features that we offer for all of the applications. SAP Cloud Identity Services comes like with an own built-in identity provider for authentication and single sign-on, but it also acts as a broker to support one and multiple IDPs if customers have their own IAM solution around. For that, it offers application-specific mapping and enrichment of tokens so that I, as a customer, connect my corporate IDP. I can do the proper mapping for all the connected systems. On top of that, we support non-standard integration scenarios, which are necessary and heavily used, especially for integration between various SAP components, as you also see later on if we look about agent identity. And finally, with that, we have one central place where we can plug in new technologies like step-up authentication, context-based authorizations, and other upcoming protocols and changes. Let's have a closer look around SAP Cloud Identity Services. What services are there? Let's start on the left-hand side. That's what employees see first, identity authentication. So we offer a central component for authentication. It supports standards for SAML and OIDC and offers either an own full capability where you have your own users, including self-registration, management, password, and other functionalities, or as often used, it integrates and delegates authentication towards a corporate IDP like Microsoft Entra or others. On that side, this works both with SAML and OIDC, and we close the gap and do the mapping between the corporate IDP and the connected SAP applications. Second component, the central one, is the central user store. As already mentioned, knowing your users is important from a compliance perspective, but also for business functionalities. For example, if we look at WorkZone or Joule, it's important that you know all the users, that you can, for tasks, can delegate tasks, or for Joule, the Joule knows in which systems the user can access, what authorizations the user has, so that kind of the proper tools and answers can be provided. Identity Directory is the central user store for all the systems that don't have an own persistence. It offers a SCIM standard API to retrieve and manage users there. For those systems that require local users, like for example, the S4HANA systems, identity provisioning takes care to replicate the users between the Identity Directory and the respective applications. Also, identity provisioning can be used to synchronize users between an external user store as Entra and the Identity Directory, so that customers can choose their corporate source of truth, like whatever IAM tool they have, and synchronize that with the SAP source of truth, the Identity Directory. Lastly, the fourth component on there is authorization management. It doesn't replace or is not meant to be like the central authorization management replacing all existing LOB-specific authorization management, but it's the BTP authorization management for policy-based authorizations, which is used by newer applications built on the BTP, as well as we see later on, also used for agents to protect APIs that agent can call. Taking these four components and putting that into a picture, you see the reference architecture. It's a rather busy slide, so I'm not going to go into that in details. I want to point out that as part of the Architecture Center Identity Access Management, we share the reference architecture and provide guidance how to integrate that. You see on the left-hand side how customers can connect their own identity provider, identity management, as well as it closely integrates with success factors for employee lifecycle. Towards the right-hand side, the SAP applications, you see many errors. Well, the number of errors is mostly because we depicted both authentication, identity lifecycle, as well as groups separately. But also, as we see later on about the SAP-managed, with the SAP-managed approach, we are taking the feedback we receive from customers that managing all the SAP applications with like all these many errors is difficult, and are aiming to simplify that so that customers can focus more on the left-hand side, connecting their IAM solutions, connecting their users, and managing authorizations, while the details around the right-hand side and all the integrations is as much as possible pre-configured and done automatically. That's on a very short time, like an overview around identity management and SAP Cloud Identity Services. Now let's look into what are the two topics that we see as strategic for this year, like the two largest ones. First one, no surprise, is the Business AI platform and agent identity. And as you probably have seen with kind of autonomous enterprise as well as AI and agents in general, the world is changing, the way how we operate changes, and so does how security and identity management is done. I'm not going to look into our details on the autonomous enterprise, but rather into a little bit details about SAP Business AI platform, and specifically what role and what place SAP Cloud Identity has. Good thing, if you look at that, is that on the right-hand side, you see govern as one of the three key pillars. Let's quickly run through from left to right. So build, the build area with Joule Studio and SAP integration suites provide customers the means to build own agents in an intent-based approach so that it's easy to build those agents and adjust the SAP agents as needed. All that is based on the SAP Knowledge Graph and the SAP Business Data Cloud and the AI models that provide the foundation for all the information needed for the agents to operate on, and kind of the data they need, where they can read, and then finally also, if approved, adjust and operate on behalf of the user. Given that this is a large shift, we see that governance of agent and security overall is an important topic, as can be seen on the right-hand side, where govern is listed as one of the three pillars. This is mostly done by the SAP AI Agent Hub. So looking a little bit closer into that, the SAP AI Agent Hub is like the central place for AI governance. It covers like the 360 of AI and agent. So it comes with like an agent and an MCP registry and overview. It includes information about all the agents around evals, assessment, observability, as well as you can see also about identity and access control. For that one, the SAP AI Agent Hub isn't re-implemented functionality, but fully relies on SAP Cloud Identity Services to provide the identity information of agents, including the authorizations. So digging deeper into that, let's first, before we see how it's done, let's first define what is an agent at all. Yeah? An agent, on one side, is an application in some deterministic way that is tasked to perform specific operations. Yeah? It uses an LLM kind of for the work, which has like a feedback loop and also a memory. From that side, if we look into that from a security perspective, we see that as good as bad, that agents, there's this risk that they could be social engineered and prompted to do specific things which they are not supposed to be doing. In general, LLMs try to find the solution they are asked for, even so if it's not a direct way. And as such, as an example, they might be using every credential and authorization they can find to perform the specific task they are asked for. While on one side, this is good, that they really do what they are asked to. On the other side, from a security side, we have to be careful and control that. So what do we do? Looking at the agents, first of all, we see two main scenarios. The one, kind of the common one, agents acting on behalf of a human identity. So you have an agent that you define, that you develop, but at the end, it's a human that starts and interacts with the agent, and then the agent is doing changes on behalf of that user in the specific system or providing the necessary information the human is able to see anyways. On the other side, we also see specific agents that act on their own. So they are started once and then, like as an additional employee, do specific tasks and provide information or even do necessary changes and inform the humans afterwards. To cover both of that, we added agent identity as an own entity in SAP Cloud Identity Services. So first, what is it? As mentioned before, an agent at the end is an application. So that's why we also model agents as applications in Cloud Identity Service. They're visible as applications and have a trust to the SAP Agent Gateway, as we see later on the central place for integrating with agents. On the other side, specifically for agents that act on their own, we also give agents an own user ID that they can act on and integrate with the system. And finally, for both cases, we offer policy and role assignments so that users have their own authorizations. You can define what agents can do and who can use the agent. So how does the authorization check look in more details? Let's start at the end. At the end, agents want to access applications, be it reading information or if they are tasked to do specific things, do those changes. Applications are already today protected by authorizations, usually with very fine-grained authorizations, sometimes application-specific authorizations, and sometimes even restricted to specific attributes like work for specific cost centers or org units or other parts. That one will remain specifically for principal propagation, where agents act on behalf of the human. The agent will, in quotes, impersonate the human and use those authorizations to access the backend system. This will be added by what we call scoped authorizations in the SAP Business AI platform. So what have we done? For agents, we define functional authorizations of what the agent can do, which tools the agent can use, which APIs the agent can call, which MCP server the agent can call, separated by read, write, and the future additional authorizations, and kind of defined as part of the agent development. So if you develop an agent and deploy the agent, we know what the agent is supposed to be doing and show that as part of SAP Cloud Identity Services and AI Agent Hub. When the agent is called, these authorizations are enforced in the SAP Business AI platform, specifically in the SAP Agent Gateway, so that only those functionalities the agent was initially supposed to be doing, he's allowed to do. This means at the end that will intersect the authorizations the agent has with the authorizations the human has in the backend, or the agent has in the backend if it's specifically defined in that sense, and both of them have to be true. So we added these scoped authorizations as second level of authorizations, and to further limit what an agent can do, so that even if an agent is impersonating a user, he can't do everything the user can do, but only what has been defined specifically for those agents. Third step, we also added a check who can call an agent. So at the end, the agent is there and works on behalf of either the user or in itself, but not everyone should be allowed by default to call the agent. That's why we added also in the SAP Business AI platform a check on a definition which users or also which other agents can call and use an agent. This is done, as said, as part of SAP Cloud Identity, and only if we are sure that the user should have access to the agent, we will issue the respective token that can then be used by the agent via Agent Gateway to access the systems and exchange the token with backend authorizations, so that we have like the end-to-end flow between a user accesses an agent, we ensure that the user can access the agent, we ensure that the agent can call the proper API, and finally in the backend, the authorizations are checked again that the user either has authorization, or if it's via a technical user, then this technical user is authorized to do that. And with that, we guarantee end-to-end that only what has been defined upfront can be accessed as information by the agent. So to summarize, on the agent governance, we have the SAP AI Agent Hub, which gives an insight into the overall landscape, what agents are there, manage those agents, and provide all the information necessary to ensure that agents are handled in a compliant way. We have the SAP Agent Gateway that acts as a central component for all the communication and restricts access between agents and the backend systems. And we have SAP Cloud Identity Systems, where we have the agent identity, where we visualize all the agents, where we show the policies, where we control who should have access to which agents, and finally, where we issue the tokens to the agents, specifically given like with the defined policy. So that's the first step to kind of provide end-to-end identity towards agents. And now handing over to Marco for the SAP-managed scenarios.
Thanks, Michael. I hope you can see my screen. I will continue. I have the control. Let me continue. After the update which Michael gave about the Business AI platform, what's new with regards to agent identity, I wanted to share also the changes that we envision and are providing for the operations model of the cloud solutions with regards to SAP managed scenarios and what impact it will have with regards to the responsibility model. So when we look at Joule, Joule is really a cross-application integration scenario that requires a lot of trust configurations, making sure that the integration components are secure, and that has proven to be quite a lot of effort for customers to administrate it in case something is not working, to analyze that. And this is something that we want to target as well with regards to changing the operations model for cloud solutions here with the SAP managed tools coming from a customer managed configuration and setup of the scenarios towards customer activation of a particular application, but making sure that the technical technical integration is handled in an SAP-managed fashion by SAP colleagues administrating and overseeing the scenarios so that the application, the technical integration does not need to bother what a customer has to do with regards to administrational efforts for the application. So this is something that we're targeting not only for Joule, but this is also other applications are targeting the so-called SAP managed scenarios with a paradigm that the business decision at the end of the day is still done by the customer. However, the technical integration need, the trust configuration, making sure, overseeing that integration scenarios are up and running, working properly. This is handled in an SAP managed fashion. So that means when we look at the overall shared responsibility model that we have established and communicated so far, it has always been that SAP or hyperscaler infrastructure was handled by SAP. Customers do not need to bother about it. Also about the runtime perspective, database operating systems and stuff like that has always been SAP domain for public cloud solutions. Whereas when it comes to the upper level, account management, application creation, development, that has been as a customer domain. This is now extended a little bit from SAP perspective that we take care about technical aspects of application integration with the goal to ease the integration pain, which is sometimes there in the integration, and where the Joule and the AI scenarios, of course, have a heavy load with regards to the number of integrations to be handled. Now, what does it mean? At the end of the day, the business decision remains with a customer, and here we are targeting to handle that via to be user provisioning aspects if needed, the tokens that are being issued. That is something that SAP DevOps team will take care with regards to overseeing the landscape and the integration scenarios with the respective monitoring tools so that the integration, monitoring and operation is with less effort on customer side. That is the intention of the SAP managed scenarios. What actually does that mean from the steps that are needed? So that starts with the initial provisioning of the suite application like Joule for authentication, the configuration of the identity provider, as well as authorization management and identity lifecycle management. This is still being controlled by the customer. However, as said, with regards to the integration of SAP towards the SAP solution, this is handled in an SAP managed fashion. How exactly does it look like? So when the provisioning of a suite application is intended to be done, that is triggered via SAP for me, where an administrator can select a particular suite application and then the respective administrator authorizations for the initial administrators are being provisioned, and the so-called SAP managed integration setup is established. That means from authentication and single sign-on perspective that the identity authentication service acts as the identity provider for the application, which might of course be set up as a proxy towards a corporate IDP, but that is the default integration that is being set up. When it comes to identity lifecycle management, then we call it SAP-managed jobs for user and role assignments are scheduled so that the business decision at the end of the day, which is done by a customer administrator, assigning a user to particular groups being relevant for a certain application. This is done by the customer administrator. When it comes to actually provisioning the assignments technically towards the application. This is handled in an SAP-managed way, usually automated, but observed. And in case issues come up, SAP DevOps engineers will take care, investigate, and make sure that the provisioning integration is happening in a smooth way, and customers do not need to investigate. Administrator can add additional users for the setup in SAP Cloud Identity and maintain the role assignments so that at the end of the day, the business logic and business decision is still in the hands of our customers. When we look at identity lifecycle management, that of course also means, and that is, by the way, also the default, that we have a third-party identity management tool in place. And that of course remains true also for SAP-managed scenarios. So the identity lifecycle management should really fit into the existing scenarios which a company has being set up, and that is usually in place with a third-party IDM solution, so that the users are being provisioned originally created in an HR system, from there propagated to an IDM solution, from there into the identity services, and here provisioned to the SAP cloud solutions. And that can happen on the one side with customer managed scenarios where customer is in full control, as we have it as of today. So when a customer has a cloud identity services tenant, he's in full control of the lifecycle management. In parallel, there may be SAP managed scenarios where only the business decision at the end of the day is needed. For instance, the decision to provision a certain user record with these assignments to authorizations is assigned in cloud identity. But when it comes to the technical provisioning scenarios, the IPS logs, definition and monitoring about that, that is handled in an SAP managed scenario, so that customers do not need to bother about that. And that's a significant change for those SAP managed solution which a customer decides for. But as mentioned, from a business perspective, the relevant business decisions remain in the customer administrator hand. Okay, these were the two major strategic updates that we wanted to give about the Business AI platform, as well as the changes in the shared responsibility model with the new SAP managed scenarios coming up, and what it means from identity access management perspective. We also wanted to share an outlook about the roadmap, the innovations that we are targeting for the cloud identity services in the upcoming periods. We differentiated a little bit with regards to short-term activities, mid-term, and rather long-term, where we're heading with the service on a strategic level. So at the moment, really, we have a clear focus on supporting agentic AI scenarios. This is something that we are focused on with agent identity, with the respective governance capabilities for the security tokens, which are required to support the scenarios. This is clearly a focus which our teams are working on. Then, as I mentioned, simplifying the operations and administration of what we call the SAP managed scenarios. This is also a key area which we're currently working on. The feature of support for technical users is something that we even recently just shipped, also being very beneficial for the integration scenarios that we are currently supporting for Agentic AI. So something that was just recently released. Then we are extending the user SCIM API with the possibility to manage so-called SP, comes from the SAML standard service provider users, so that the SCIM API, so far acting on user profile level only, can also manage the application assignments, what we call the SP users in Cloud Identity. This is supposed to be extended in the SCI SCIM API. Then that we want to allow custom schema attribute as subject name identifier. This is an influence request which was requested by many customers. So one of the features that we're providing based on customer demand. Also, a feature requested by actually many customers is the possibility to define what we call composite roles, a possibility to combine roles, user group assignments into what we call a composite role to simplify the management of the user group, user role assignment in the Identity Directory service. As a next topic, we are targeting to have increased flexibility for on-premise connectivity, where we are at the moment, where on-premise connectivity is needed for the integration scenarios for IPS, for user provisioning to an on-premise user store. Also, on-prem connectivity is sometimes needed for authentication scenarios, where we have authentication scenarios outside of the usual browser redirects. So here we want to have more flexibility, which BTP sub-accounts and Cloud Identity Service tenant can connect to. A major topic which our teams are working on is also the extension of the audit logs. The audit logs are, of course, for a security critical component like the Cloud Identity Services, extremely important. And here the feedback was that the audit logs are a little bit difficult to evaluate in an automated fashion. So the extension of the audit logs means we are providing the audit logs soon in a different audit log catalog, which is a little bit more standardized, extended, as well as more suitable for automatic evaluation. So something that a lot of customers are looking forward to. Then what we're targeting also is the managing the tenant configuration policy. So extending what we call the delegated administration capability, a more fine granular authorization concept for SAP Cloud Identity. Then what we're working on is the possibility of rotation of app credentials by apps themselves in order to have such technical integration scenarios to be able to automate such integration scenarios and avoiding the risk that integration scenarios break due to expired credentials. Then the Calm integration is something that we are supporting for quite some time with the Cloud Identity Services. So we want to extend that as one example here with certificate validity, one of the topics where we enrich an already existing integration scenario with Calm to be able to better monitor secure setup and making sure that the integration scenarios remain up and running. We are also continuously extending the availability, the worldwide availability of the Cloud Identity Services. At the moment, current request is to have a new landscape in Qatar. So from time to time, we get requests for new regional landscapes. And so Qatar is one of the next candidates to be where we can offer SAP Cloud Identity Services. When we look at the area of rather long-term activities, so this is something where we are targeting to have notifications for changes in user profiles as well as user group assignments, which the Identity Directory service can trigger to immediately push changes which were made in a user profile, whether that is manually by an administrator or provisioned via an IDM solution to user profile in Cloud Identity to make such changes immediately transparent and visible also in the respective SAP Cloud solutions. One of the topics for long-term activity, which we are actually, where we have quite a number of requests to improve the user search capabilities in Identity Directory, is something that we are looking forward with kind of changes that we're targeting on infrastructure layer to be able to offer more sophisticated user search capabilities than we have at the moment in SAP Cloud Identity. Then the user provisioning status is subject to be handled in Identity Directory, so that an administrator of Cloud Identity also has transparency about the provisioning status of particular users towards the business application, and to avoid the need to have the checks of the IPS logs, but to have that transparency then also directly in Identity Directory. And last but not least, something that we are targeting is to harmonize the user experience across the service. In principle, this is a regular activity that we're having. We are frequently working on harmonizing the user experience across the service with regards to UI management on a technical level, but also on a semantic layer. One of the bigger topics that we want to target long term is also something where we have the IES applications for the integration from single sign-on perspective versus the source and target systems at the end of the day. This is something that we would like to harmonize and unify in the future, where we still have these handled in the respective services of IES and IPS, something that we're looking forward to on a long-term and strategic layer. Yeah, these were the planned innovations, the features that we're targeting. Not all the features that we're targeting, but the main activities, so that you can see the strategic direction where we are working towards. And looking at that one from the activities that are at the end of the day focus for this year, of course, that is the business AI, supporting the business AI platform with the really major change and extension that the Cloud Identity Service will hold the object of agent identity. This is a significant extension with the possibility via respective integration with policy management and token issuing, that the governance for agentic AI scenarios can be ensured based on capabilities provided by SAP Cloud Identity. Then SAP-managed IAM setups. Here we want to ensure a fast and secure path to set up and integrate the solutions that are needed to simplify the integration scenarios. This is also something that I'm looking forward to when this is being rolled out, whether customers really benefit in the way as we envision it to simplify the integration scenarios. And last but not least, when it comes to SAP-managed Joule, here the SAP Cloud Identity Service are the default IAM integration component for SAP-managed Joule, and that hopefully helps customers also to make the contents that we have in SAP business applications also available for Joule, to make it accessible and easier retrieving a business value from that data outside of the transactional usage that we offer so far. Yeah, that was the summary of what we wanted to share for today. On the one side, supporting the strategic activities of SAP, as well as what we are providing from functions and features perspective. And basically, that's it what we wanted to share today. And I think we can go back to Q&A.
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of questions, and at this point, I'm really happy to hand over to Boris.
Yeah, really amazing. Thanks a lot, Michael and Marco, for the amazing session. And yeah, as you heard, the audience is very engaging. So thanks a lot, everyone, for coming up with the questions. And please keep going, right? We still have some time to answer those. So let's start and going through the first questions. Adi, thanks a lot for... Sorry.
interrupt.
What?
Marco, can you please unshare? I think it's nicer. Okay, perfect.
Thanks,
And
Marco.
now,
Thanks, Marco and
and
Tanja.
again.
Yeah. And Adi, once again, thanks a lot for breaking the ice and greetings to the other side of the world, right? Great that you are part of our live stream today. So you did ask for the holistic picture there on using all identity services products by SAP. I'm not sure if we can cover that here, but you mentioned CM, IIS, web portal, workzone, hub development, and itself deployed identity management service, and so on. You also provided an example. CM used as a third-party tool like Elantra does not pass tokens to IIS via workzone. So how to trace the end-to-end path of SAML if the EIS is the black box for us? I'm not sure, Michael, if you have some.
Yeah. I get started, and Marco, you can add if you want. So perhaps for the high level picture, yeah. So pretty much we have in the cloud two solutions. The one is SAP Cloud Identity Services, who is the focus of managing employees accessing SAP solutions, and then we have CIAM, Consumer Identity Management. Our product name is Customer Data Cloud, which takes care of managing consumers. So pretty much focus on self-registration functionality, shop functionalities, providing a seamless way if end users, not the employees, but end users accessing applications or web shops want to access. Yeah. In the day sessions, we first of all focused on SAP Cloud Identity Services for the employee world. I'll get the link to CM in a minute. First easy one, IAS is the Identity Authentication Service. I would say it's more like one component or a synonym for SAP Cloud Identity Services. So that's pretty much the same. Yeah. As part of that, this is really the central component. CAP was listed, if I remember correctly, and for CAP, pretty much it's the application programming languages, which itself either uses Cloud Identity and AMS, or it can still use BTP, User and Authorization Management, also called XSUAA. So from that side, Cloud Identity is the overarching thing where underneath you can have local user management, all integrated with Cloud Identity. For the BTP world, we have the XSUAA and Cloud Identity, which we bring closer together. Recommendation is for newer ones, if you go with CAP, use the AMS integration, which is like the central authorization component of Cloud Identity. But if you are using the BTP user and access management component, that's also fine. There's like an integration between both of them. Yeah. Workzone, as we've seen in the discussions from SAP-managed and Joule, so where we are heading to is that, so Workzone needs the user's authorizations in order to show the proper tiles the user has access to. Right now, this needs to be integrated into Workzone, but where we are heading towards is that Workzone will read that information from Cloud Identity Directory. So that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that the directory is becoming more and more important, that you bring users, including the role assignments or group assignments of the specific applications, into the directory. And then you don't need to replicate anything anymore to Workzone, because Workzone and Joule, they will read that information directly from the directory. Yeah. So that's kind of in a nutshell, and to end the question around CIAM and Cloud Identity. So from our experiences when talking to the customers, usually it's very separate, that they use the consumer side, they use Customer Data Cloud really for the consumer side and separate that from the employee side. There's an integration via SAML and OIDC where you can have the CIAM part, like the Customer Data Cloud, as the identity provider for SAP Cloud Identity to reach into the business world. That's possible, works as it works also connecting to other systems. For the tracing functionality, we might need to follow up, but at the end, combining the trace information in Customer Data Cloud and Cloud Identity, you should see the token exchanges and have the end-to-end trail. If I got it right. Marco, anything to add? Let me also check the question. I hope I covered most of that.
No, I think you covered it quite nice. Also for me, it's something an evolution of the cloud identity service from initially being often just used as a proxy for single sign-on. Then we managed to establish it as a central user store. Now with the authorization assignment, having that, we see that the applications are following that model, and it is very beneficial with regards to the agent identity integration that we can manage the authorization assignments then in cloud identity. That is the way how we are handling it. And I agree with Michael that SIAM scenarios are handled often separately, but can be integrated. We are doing that at SAP in the same manner. So the public facing solutions are also intended to be used by external users where we can still authenticate as employees with the corporate single sign-on that we have. So that is the direction to go, and always based on open standards. That has always been the paradigm for our solution, that we want to support open standards so that these integration scenarios can be handled properly.
Thanks, Marco. I think that was a very detailed answer. I mean, Adi also came up with a follow-up question, but Michael, you already did provide some forward-looking statements also in terms of especially of the work zone, where we will see also then some corresponding changes. Yeah, I would say based on that, let's come to the second question, where it was asked if you can show IIS traceability capabilities and how to see log files. I'm not sure if that is possible today, but maybe you can give a short statement on that, where to find those.
I would briefly explain that the two different log types that we have. So in principle, we are offering two kind of log entries. The one is what we call the troubleshooting logs, which are part of the SCI admin console. So these are intended to be really to investigate certain issues in case user complaints or a new integration scenario is coming up, so that one can easily analyze the troubleshooting logs. Why can't the user log in? What has happened there? They are rather short-term kept, afterwards purged from the admin console. But when it comes to audit trail perspective, then we rely on the BTP audit log at the moment. This is something, the audit logs are being provisioned to the BTP that can be configured in Cloud Identity. And here I mentioned that in the innovation outlook that we are targeting for a new event catalog. And audit log version 3 will not only be a new event catalog, but it also be an SAP wide audit log on that one, being accessible for SAP for me. So that is the future to go to have. And for the troubleshooting logs, we keep that alive. And the audit logs, as mentioned, will be with a better event catalog offered in the future, also across SAP Cloud solutions then going forward.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Marco. That is very insightful. Then we have a very specific question around can the identity provisioning be done via connection to SailPoint Identity IQ? I'm not sure. You can give a general statement there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a common integration scenarios, and usually as following our integration architecture, that the central IDM solution provisions the users towards cloud identity. We're opening an open standard API based on SCIM that works by many cloud solutions, and so that customers can provision from SailPoint the users to cloud identity. It's a little bit different if the identity service should fetch and retrieve from a third-party solution. There it requires a SCIM API, and this is something that we're not offering out of the box, free of charge, but it requires an additional license for a generic SCIM connector, so that IPS can then also manage, fetch the users from a third-party store based on open standard API again, but as I said, not part of the default functionality that we're offering, but subject to be licensed.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for the detailed explanation. And also thanks a lot, Adi, again, for the comment. I just want to point it out. It's awesome to see the direction alongside such comprehensive answers. So kudos go to both of you, Marco and Michael. Let's continue. Next question. Is there any way we can use authorization management service via non-CAP applications? Not sure if you can share maybe later on a quick config setup or something like that. Maybe you can do that afterwards, but maybe we can have a short statement there.
Yeah, so first of all, it's available on BTP, both for CAP as like the preferred development environment, but also standalone. And as far as I know, there is information and blog out there. Need to find it.
Excellent. Yeah, sure. Maybe we can provide it afterwards, no problem, and then edit this comment. Then we have a question around role management in SIS. You mentioned role assignments, and at the moment there is no role management in cloud identity services, only mapping to groups. Will that change in the future?
Yeah, perhaps start kind of the one is the wording. Yeah. They are called groups because in SCIM there are only groups and not roles. We understood that this might be more confusing, so let's see whether we change terminology. We have by now what we call application-specific groups, which are basically the roles from the backend. So if you will take S4 and then by default we read all the S4 roles and map them as application-specific groups or application-specific information in Cloud Identity. So that part is there, and probably fair feedback that naming could be improved. To be kind of complete from a strategy perspective, our goal is not to replace the specific authorization managements, so which means defining authorizations, kind of what like a specific business role can do will remain in the target system, like in S4 or Ariba or Concur. What we do with Cloud Identity and also what kind of Marco showed with SAP-managed, we will read those authorization roles groups as application-specific group in Cloud Identity where you can do the assignment. So we centralize the assignment, what a user can do on a role level, but the detailed definition of what a role means and the enforcement stays with the applications, just for completeness.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Michael. Next question. There on the status of onboarding to authorization management policies. Is there a central roadmap reference that lists all BTP services or applications that are already using authorization management policies rather than just member groups mapped to role collections?
We don't have that. And as a strategy, our goal is to move towards coexistence. So the goal is not that we now replace all existing Access UAA authorizations with AMS, but rather have new applications or applications that need specific features of AMS, specifically around the policy based on that one. For the existing BTP ones, we are working to make them visible in Cloud Identity Console as well. So that if you look at the Cloud Identity, that you see next to each other the AMS policies and the, let's say, traditional BTP authorizations, so that from a management perspective, it looks the same. Yeah? But we will support both on the long term, which means no list, and also not intended as a list to checklist to say these have already moved, these are on the way. They will both continue to be supported.
Thanks a lot for the clarification, Michael. Then we have a longer question. I won't go completely through it, but it's about the execution on behalf of, we will now see with the agentic approach more and more, right? We would like to understand the security and audit implications when identity authentication service agent or delegated admins capabilities are used to act on behalf of another user. Is it able to impersonate or act on behalf of that administrator? How can we determine which individual actually performed, who performed the actions? Are there log files? Is there an audit trail? And safeguard rules and so on.
Yeah, it's rather long. I've seen it. Perhaps I'll start. I'll keep it short for now, as kind of all that is still in development. But so first of all, in cloud identity, we will have that audit trail on that impersonation part. Well, it's kind of impersonation. It's still like the user kind of starts the agent to do something specific, right? It's not that the agent now says, "Oh, now I'm Michael," yeah, and the next day he's someone else, but kind of it's me kind of calling the agent or asking the agent to do something, yeah. But we will have the trail. We also included information into the token. We will also, depending on the specific needs, we will see the human in the loop functionality, yeah, that there will be then a task inbox where the humans have to approve that before agents do changes, depending on criticality. In the backend system, at least to date, that information is not locked because the backend systems are not prepared to that. So that's why we have Cloud Identity and the AI Agent Hub to provide that level on transparency on that level, yeah. As on the backend system, that's not there. Probably, if we look at the future, at some point in time, it might be there as well as it's relevant information, but this will take longer compared to like the central business AI platform where we are faster and can provide that information upfront.
Thanks a lot, Michael, for the detailed question here as well. We already reached the top of the hour. Tanya, is it okay if we go on? That people then watch the recording maybe if they won't be able to join, or how much it's okay for you, Michael and
We are
Michael?
supposed to go that much further, perhaps, depending on how long the answers take, 1 or 2 questions. And then I would suggest that we take the open questions and post the answers in the comments area, just as all the links that we have, we will also post them there.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks a lot, Tanya, for the clarification. So let's have 1 or 2 additional questions before wrapping up. Another question was around external users. What happens in scenarios where users are not provisioned by the HR system, but instead are external users who register and access the system through an external workzone portal? Can SAP IS manage the lifecycle of these external users, including registration, authentication, authorization, or are additional user management mechanisms required?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was mentioned by Michael that the identity service can act from authentication perspective as an authentication broker. So in principle, the customer has the choice that the users register. They might register in Cloud Identity with user account confirmation, then having a secret there, being able to authenticate there. It would also be possible to have a registration from the application, provision the users, and also forward it to a corporate IDP or a central IDP, which a customer has in place for external user management. So in principle, all the combinations are available so that customers can set it up from a technical perspective. The easiest way would be for external users to let them register in Cloud Identity with account confirmation flow, and IS can also handle the lifecycle for the external users. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for the clarification. Yeah, and final question, I would say there might be a little bit special, but that would be around SAP-managed tool. I'm not sure if we have all the insights here already, but yeah, question is, in SAP-managed tool with S/4HANA Private Cloud, do we still need the global user ID from IIS to be updated in the user profile in S/4HANA Private Cloud system, or is this no longer needed? Not sure if you have any.
Yeah, I can cover that. So
cool.
The SAP Global User ID is still needed. And as short background, in order, as I mentioned before, in order for Joule to know what to propose as an answer and what services to offer, or for the agents to act on, we need to know where the user is, and we need to know that the user belongs together. For that, we need one common identifier. That's the Global User ID. Yeah? Without that one, customers might have different names, different email addresses, different identifiers, and it makes it kind of impossible to say, well, Michael has access to SuccessFactors, Concur, and that specific SAP system. That's why we need a Global User ID. As part of the SAP-managed, we are working on making it simpler to do the mapping and also provide that Global User ID for PCE systems. So that's work in progress to make it the life easier for customers to set it up, but it's still necessary.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Michael. So with that, you also did provide an answer to the follow-up question, I would say. And with that, we have really answered 10 questions. I would say that's a good point in time to now wrap it up. And again, I mean, the other questions are not lost. We would then provide answers then as in the comments of the recording. With that, I would say we have reached halftime of our series, right? We had now 5 sessions, and next week we will have another security-related one around secure, compliant, and AI ready, the future of governance and compliance on SAP BTP. So I hope we will see a lot of you again next week. And you see, I mean, it's really worth the time as the experts really are able to provide answers. Really appreciate it, Marco and Michael again. With that, I would hand over Tanya for a final wrap-up.
Thank you. Also from my side, let me express my heartfelt thank you to both Michael and Soma for your really excellent overview and walkthrough of these topics, and for providing all those detailed answers to the questions. And again, Boris, big thank you to you for moderating the Q&A. And as you already mentioned, I hope to see you again next week for the session on secure, compliant, and AI readiness. And with this, I wish everyone a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. And thank you for joining. Bye-bye.
Yes. Okay. See you then.
Bye.